How's everybody doing? Welcome to Into the Stands, episode 22. Today's April 20th, and the Yankees are playing currently. I believe they're winning 5-0 right now. We're a couple weeks into the MLB season. It's been a really good start to the season. The Yankees, a lot of shocking teams. Arizona Diamondbacks, Tampa Bay Rays got off to a phenomenal start. Some teams are under 500. The San Diego Padres, St. Louis Cardinals, and a few others. Then there's some teams like the Yankees, Mets, who are kind of still in there above 500. But the season's underway. And I guess to start this discussion, I think we got to talk about kind of like the big news around baseball, which is regarding currently the worst team in Major League Baseball, the Oakland Athletics, who in a few years, I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but looks like they're going to be known as the Las Vegas Athletics. They're going to be moving. They agreed, or I believe they're in the process of agreeing to purchasing a $1 billion stadium in South Nevada, Las Vegas area. This is terrific for the Oakland A's. They are so bad right now. It's honestly it's atrocious. They are one of the most historic franchises in Major League Baseball. I'm not sure where they rank in terms of championships all time, but they have so many Hall of Famers, so many phenomenal names who not didn't just spend a year or two in Oakland, but they're some of them their entire careers. The list is crazy. Reggie Jackson, Cat Hunter, Dennis Eckersley, Raleigh Fingers. It goes on and on and on. The amount of teams that they've had. And they've also, right, they're not this is not the first time they'll be moving. They started out in Philadelphia, then went to Kansas City, then went to Oakland, and now looks like they're going to be going to Las Vegas. I love this. They need this. They're such a great organization. They do have a passionate fan base. They're just very terrible right now, so they don't get a lot of people going. But when that team is good, I remember just a few years ago when they were just 2018, 2019, when they were good, they were in the race. That stadium rocks. Those fans are nuts. They bring the horns, the drums, and they'll go crazy. So seeing them move to Las Vegas, keep them the A's. Don't change the team name. Keep everything. Keep the classic hat. Keep a classic jersey. Just Las Vegas is going to be you're going to need to put Las Vegas on the away jerseys. But absolutely love this.
Yeah, obviously the Oakland A's being near the bottom of the MLB for the past couple of years, you want to see it, and just for any Major League Baseball team, any professional level sports team, you don't want to see an empty stadium regardless of the circumstances. I think there's even points in times where minor league stadiums got more fans than the Oakland A's did. That's just unacceptable. And you wouldn't really think that would be the case, but we kind of saw a similar situation happen with the Oakland Raiders. Obviously, they moved out, also went to Las Vegas. It seems like Las Vegas is a very popular destination now for sports teams. We don't talk a lot about the NHL, but we saw the Las Vegas Golden Knights when they first came into the league, making the Stanley Cup right away. And that, really just Las Vegas is kind of established in itself as more of a professional sports town. And I think that, it may take a couple of years for them to really come around to the A's, but I think they're probably in a way better situation in Vegas than they would be in Oakland. Absolutely. And, the A's owner was saying how they were trying to get a stadium in Oakland for a while, but it didn't work out. I'm not sure how true that is. I'm not sure all the negotiations that went behind there, but I think in general it's good for baseball because, we've seen a lot of problems with people say that baseball games aren't really not having a lot of high attendance numbers. So hopefully Las Vegas will be one of the more popular places to go in baseball.
Yeah, I've followed this story for years, and I think this is a ginormous L for the city of Oakland. If you want to go dive into some numbers, a big factor, if you want to know why Oakland and the owner of the A's have been in negotiations to try to get funding and just a stadium built for, I believe, the last 4-ish years. Yeah, a big factor, and this is partially on Oakland's side, was they had like some affordable housing by the stadium. That I remember watching a video on it, doing some research. That was a big thing that Oakland wanted out of it. And the owner of the Athletics, who was a businessman, I don't remember his exact name. There's also only been one real interview with their owner. He hasn't been really active in the media landscape up until the announcement of today. But at the same time, Oakland, this is a huge L for the city. This is an L for the area. They've had the Golden State Warriors. Remember, they were in Oakland at Oracle Arena. They moved to, I believe, San Francisco. You lost the Raiders, as Colin mentioned, to Las Vegas. And now you're losing another franchise to Las Vegas. And now it's going to be really weird to see that no franchise will be based in Oakland. That, I think, is detrimental for just that area as a whole. I mean, they haven't had much like money government wise. They've been struggling with that for years now. And I think just with like no professional sports team in that area, I think that's a huge problem for that region, the Oakland region. But at the same time, the stadium itself we knew was bad. What is it? What is it even called now?
It's got like 5 different names.
It's like
Oakland,
Rings
Alameda
some
County.
that was what it
Coliseum,
used to
Ricky
be.
Henderson Field at the
It
same
was like
time.
Rings.
Three
Is it
different
Rings
names.
Central
I
now?
don't know.
The
But
Rings
I know
Central
it's
Coliseum?
terrible. I've always wanted to. I've always ever
It
since
just
I became a
looks
fan,
weird.
I've wanted to go to a game there, but it looks awful. It looks. I mean, we got the possum infestation in the visitor
That's right.
broadcaster booth. It's terrible. They
I mean-
need to move.
I mean, I think another big thing is we haven't seen a major league team move locations, I believe, since Montreal became the Nationals.
Yeah,
How long has that been now?
that was 2005.
2005-ish. Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I've watched videos on teams relocating. I'm gonna go back a little bit when the Rangers were originally I forgot what they were called. I think they were originally from Washington or somewhere like that. And then they became I forgot. Were they
You're talking
Washington?
about the Twins.
I think that was the Twins. That
they-
was the
they
Twins.
were
That's
in
my mistake.
Washington and went
There
to
was
Minnesota.
originally a team that moved, and they moved to Texas, and then there was like a giant fan outrage at the last game before they became the Rangers, and it caused mass problems. I think it was the original Montreal. I think the Expos came around twice. That's what I'm thinking of. I might be confusing myself a little bit, but I think with Oakland leaving, the Athletics had all the leverage, realistically, because the power they have as a franchise. Granted, they are technically, I'm gonna call them a small market club right now because of how much lack of money they're
Been in
spending.
small market for a while.
But because like you wouldn't think for a California city area, you would not want to call them a small market team. But I think this goes more on. I mean, we've known this owner for being cheap recently, trading off key pieces when you really realistically. I mean, money wise, it was bad, but you're trying to get funding for a new stadium. You're going to move locations and you're going to have the money to keep your players and possibly move, and they did it earlier. So I think this goes on the A's organization. I think it goes both ways. But at the end of the day, do they keep the name Athletics? That's a question I've heard today.
Absolutely. They did it
I don't
4
think
times
so.
now. They
I
did it
don't
3
think so.
times now. You got to keep it.
I mean, I don't think that really associates with Las Vegas very well.
I don't think it associated with Oakland.
Well, that's true, but like they had like the colors. I felt like were Oakland.
I think this fits Oakland.
Where were they?
Las
Where were they?
Vegas.
Where were they before Oakland again?
It was Kansas City, and then
That's
that was
even-
before the Royals, and then before that they originated in Philadelphia.
I knew they originated in Philadelphia, but the color is that I don't know if that's gonna fit in Vegas very well. But at the same time, it's gonna be weird. There's gonna be transitions. But we're quickly going to jump now to the NBA landscape since we did our playoff predictions last week. What has gone on so far? Well, I'll give you a quick rundown of the matchups I want to talk about. And we're going to start off with the 2 California teams, which is convenient. With the Sacramento Kings going up 2-0 on the Warriors. Wow. I think did anyone pick the Warriors? Did anyone pick them?
We both did.
I want to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
So on the show last week, I actually did predict that the Sacramento Kings would win the first 2 games. But however, I said the Warriors would win the next 4. I did say that. Now, obviously, the big story has been the Draymond Green, Domantas Sabonis situation. I think that's what we should kind of get into now.
Absolutely.
So obviously, we saw that Draymond Green has a history of this, right? I mean, that's kind of the reason why many say the Warriors lost the 2016 NBA Finals. That incident with LeBron James getting ejected or not being able to play in that Game 5. Cavs went on that run the championship. We also saw him get into many other run-ins in the past, but this Domantas Sabonis one. Now, people wonder who was in the wrong here. Now, I can't really vouch for Domantas Sabonis. I'm not sure because if you look at different angles, it looks like he's either grabbing Draymond Green's leg or he's trying to just simply block his head. But regardless of what Sabonis was trying to do, that was still a horrible reaction by Draymond Green, stomping on his chest. I think what the biggest part of that ejection was, however, was that I just think that Draymond Green kind of riling up that Sacramento crowd. I think it kind of conjured up images of malice in the palace, some which the NBA is desperately trying to avoid. It's what they're really the most scared of. So I think that suspending Draymond Green was what was right. It's what they should do. It's what the NBA thought was the best way to go about it. But now we have this game tonight. I mean, we could see the Golden State Warriors find themselves in a 3-0 hole for the first time really ever in this dynasty. I mean, it would be truly a sight to see. But obviously, the Warriors at home are going to be tough to beat. But it wasn't surprising seeing the Warriors lose on the road because this is who they've been, right? I mean, I believe it was like an 11-30 record on the road. Just they were awful on the road all year. Yeah, I mean, and it's crazy to see because this is the defending champions, right? For them to be that horrible on the road, I mean, especially with all the championship DNA in this team. But I mean, you can't count the Sacramento Kings. I mean, I have to say though, that fan base has been phenomenal. There's a chance that team could have gotten moved back in 2012-ish or so. They were talking about them possibly getting moved to Seattle because Sacramento's obviously not a big market. They're kind of like the Oakland A's in a way of the NBA, just kind of like a California team that's just kind of a lesser market. But man, let me tell you, that fan base, they have come out and they've come out in full support. Unbelievable. And I mean, really, I think that is one of the best playoff atmospheres I've seen in a while in the NBA. I saw it compared to back when Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, that Thunder team, how that crowd used to be. I think it even harkens back to Oracle Arena with the Golden State Warriors in Oakland. I think that fan base, man, it's been such a fun series to watch. For me personally, I think that's a series I've had the most fun watching so far because this Canes team, once again, did not have a lot of expectations. They made that trade for Sabonis last year. And, you traded away Tyrese Halliburton. Many people thought the Kings lost that trade, right? Because Halliburton showed a lot of promise. He was an all-star for Indiana. But, man, Mike Brown winning Coach of the Year. De'Aaron Fox won the NBA's Clutch Player of the Year. It's such a fun team to watch. And I think the whole NBA landscape is kind of rooting for them in this situation. I want to see them win. But ultimately, the big test is going to be how they do these next two games. So, really looking forward to see what happens in this series.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And I think De'Aaron Fox has really stepped up so far. But the thing with Sabonis, you can make the argument that Sabonis grabbed his ankle a little bit. You cannot have that reaction if you're Draymond Green. It's unacceptable. I mean, you can make the argument that he had nowhere else to go. You do not continuously step on someone when you had somewhere like you can just move over a little bit.
And if you look at the video, he looked down.
Exactly. That's what I was about to mention. You looked straight down at him. So I think this is the right move by the NBA suspending for one game. I think it was the right move. Didn't really I think if it was for multiple games, I think that would have been controversial. But I think what the NBA was right there. I think the Kings, they have all the momentum. I think they can maybe split. I think I said Kings in 6, I think was my prediction. And I think right here, this is your statement. The next couple of games in Golden State for Sacramento, if you can split, it's going to be the Kings could win this in 5. Realistically, I think the Kings can win this in 5 if they split this series. But at the end of the day, this is already, like Colin mentioned, this is a win for the Kings. I mean, the passion in this fan base. My comparison was going to be, remember when Toronto had that big fan support when they were going to the finals? They just like, because really, like, people thought, oh, they're going to get dethroned by somebody in their playoff run.
That fan base is always been passionate.
But like, I've never seen, like, me personally, who doesn't follow the NBA as much, I haven't, like, Oklahoma City was a phenomenal comparison. I think that's accurate. And I think that's like how busy Toronto looked and how many fans were just around everywhere in Toronto, like supporting the Raptors. I feel like, especially for Canada, I think that was like a great achievement for them to win there, to like have that passion of a fan base. But Sacramento, because it's not really like been that successful, like NBA playoffs wise. I think that was their first championship when they won it back a couple of years ago. But for Sacramento, I think with the passion they've had, I think is a huge win for the league. I think it's a huge win for the area. I think the Kings win this in 5. But another series before, I think you guys want to debate about this for a little bit. We go to the battle that will be at MSG with Cleveland and the Knicks. Now, granted, I said Cleveland in 5. It's still possible. But I want to get both of your thoughts on this because you guys have watched this series more than me, personally. Because you saw the great battle in game 1. And then you saw Cleveland just come out and I think they controlled and dominated game 2 in a way that I think could have been even expected in game 1. But the Knicks, briefly for me, I think there's Jalen Brunson had a good game. Julius Randle, I think, got a clutch rebound at the end. If I remember like the last few plays correctly, I was listening to it on a YouTube stream while doing some homework a couple days ago. But we'll start with Chris because we haven't heard from you in a little bit. What are your thoughts on the 1-1 series, the equal series so far heading to MSG?
Well, first of all, going back to the Kings-Warriors series, I do think Draymond Green being out, all right, obviously deservedly so, but I think that's going to really affect the Warriors. I think that's definitely obviously helps the Kings going into this next game now, going to back to San Francisco. They definitely need all the help they can get, although they're probably at this point the favorite in that series. I really want them to win. I'm going to stick with my pick that the Warriors win in 7, but yeah, I think that's gonna help the Kings. But getting to this Cavs and Knicks series, listen, if you're the Knicks, you take the record you got in Cleveland and you'll run away with that. You'll come back home to New York City, Madison Square Garden, with a chance to go back to Cleveland with a 3-1 lead. You could do that hypothetically. I think this is exactly one. It's what I said I thought was going to happen. I thought they were going to win game 1. It was a tight game, but they ended up at the end in the fourth quarter, kind of having a little bit of a comfortable lead and winning the game. Just slightly comfortable. It wasn't, it wasn't a blowout or anything. But then, of course, the Cavaliers are a very good team. They win by around 17 points. And that's what you look. I mean, I don't think anyone expected this to be easy. I think the Knicks. I think this is definitely one of the better series of the NBA playoffs. One of the more tight series, I think. And I think that's exactly. I think what we saw proved exactly that. I mean, but yeah, if you're the Knicks, of course, you still have, you got to see if Randall and Brunson are going to be all right and well for these games in Madison Square Garden, because that's going to be huge. RJ didn't have a terrible game, but again, going back to Madison Square Garden, 1-1 series, you're not that they're the favorites, but things are looking a little better for the Knicks.
I was talking about Jalen Brunson a lot when we made Knicks pick last week, and I mean, I think he kind of proved me right. I think that he's that big playoff performer, that big closer that the Knicks needed. And I also want to talk about Josh Hart, because he was a guy who had a phenomenal game there in game 1, shooting 8 for 10, but he actually sprained his ankle, and he was playing in that game too hurt. That's kind of a big kind of reason why the Knicks got blown out there, because Julius Randle still has not been 100% in this series. I think if it was just like the regular season, he would not be playing these games right now. But Julius Randle and Josh Hart both kind of playing on bum ankles, but I think that riding off that game 1 win, it was kind of unrealistic for you to take both games in Cleveland, especially because that's another great playoff atmosphere too. Those fans have been amazing as well. But going over to MSG, I think that it's time now, right? The Garden is supposed to be the mecca of basketball. It's supposed to be the most famous arena in the world. This is where you're supposed to capitalize if you are the New York Knicks. Obviously, you have not seen the production you want out of RJ Barrett, but it's kind of been like that all year for him. I think that he's kind of critical if you want to win a couple more games going on in this series. But look, Cleveland, they're a great team, right? We saw Donovan Mitchell have 38 in game 1. They ended up losing. Darius Garland had 26 points in the first half of game 2. I mean, you kind of forget about him because of Donovan Mitchell, but he's also, just a very phenomenal player. I believe he was an all-star just a year ago. You also have Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. It's a very good roster. Do not get me wrong. The Knicks have their work cut out for them. But I think that if you're the Knicks going back to the Garden, I mean, if you could take both games there, that changes the whole dynamic of that series. So I'm really excited to see what happens. They play in the Garden game 3 on Friday. Going to be definitely watching. Excited to see what happens. But I think the next series we need to talk about, because it's maybe the most star-powered series we have in this first round, Los Angeles Clippers and Phoenix Suns. Now, game 1 of this series, the big story coming out of it was kind of Russell Westbrook, believe it or not, because Westbrook may have had the greatest 3 for 19 shooting performance you will ever see. Because let me tell you, in the fourth quarter of that game, Russell Westbrook came down with every single offensive rebound. He made a phenomenal play at the end of the game, throwing the ball off of Devin Booker, which ended up basically giving the Clippers that game 1 win. And hey, playoff Kawhi's back, right? Oh, wait, we just got the report. He's not going to be playing tonight in game 3 because guess what? He's love managing in the playoffs. Wow, it's not like he didn't do that for all these years with the Spurs, Raptors, not the Clippers. But hey, that's who Kawhi is. But yeah, I was looking kind of forward to seeing the remainder of the series, but if this knee problem is an issue for Kawhi Leonard, I don't think the Clippers are going to be able to keep up. But yeah, playoff Kawhi Leonard, you cannot take him for granted. Listen, I know he doesn't have the same regular season production as a lot of the top scorers in the league, but when it comes to playoff time, there's a few players I'd rather want on my team than Kawhi. If he is healthy, of course. But Westbrook going forward, he actually had a pretty more efficient game in game 2. But it just is really fascinating to see him and Kevin Durant. We saw actually after one of the timeouts in one of the games, him and Kevin Durant were jawing at each other. That brings back a lot of memories. Westbrook even blocked Durant on another shot as well. But yeah, the Suns team, the big thing that concerns me though, they were my finals pick, and I still think that they can do it. But the depth kind of concerns you because Cameron Payne still isn't back yet. So, you're kind of having to rely on guys like Torrey Craig, even Bismack Biyombo. I forgot about him, to be honest with you. But these guys are going to need to step up for Phoenix going forward. But obviously with Durant, Booker, Paul, and Aiden, I mean, that's as good of a top 4 as you can have in the NBA right now. I think it might be the best top 4. But yeah, really excited to see where that one goes.
Yeah, you're 100% right about that series. The star power on the Suns and the depth being a problem, and Westbrook having, as you mentioned, the great 3 for 19. I believe it was 3 for 19, right? 3 for 19 shooting game. But I mean, the Clippers stepped up in game 1, and then, I mean, they lost game 2. But I mean, looking at the rest of this series, I mean, I don't know. This is a good toss up. I mean, looking at the Suns, they're the star power, depth being a problem. You could say that. I mean, I compared them a little bit to like they're the better version of what Cleveland is. That was my little bit of a comparison because you look at the star power, they both have very solid starting lineups. Their depth is awful when they're not healthy, especially with the Suns. The Cavs' depth is just, I think it's underwhelming for how like good they are. I think it's underwhelming, and I think in free agency they'll add that. But for the Suns, I mean, this is like I don't know. I mean, if the Suns do fail, I don't know what you do next other than get depth or draft like a second round pick to play 25 minutes a game or 20 minutes a game next year. I mean, the Suns are in a weird spot because their depth is bad or okay, I'll go underwhelming. I won't say bad, but can you get carried by Kevin Durant and that incredible starting lineup in a 7-game series against doing against the Clippers? If they can find a way against the Clippers, can they do it against a team like the Nuggets?
They really wish they had Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson.
Oh my God, yes. I totally agree with that. And Kevin Durant, has Kevin Durant done really anything? I mean, I haven't been paying attention to the series right now. He's been their best player. Okay, fair enough. But they sacrificed their depth for this. I mean, granted, they're both getting killed by the Sixers, but because the Nets are down 2-0. But at the same time, I think this is your, I want to call it like a ride or die kind of season, but they have a lot of star power. I think the Suns can get it done still with their lack of depth. It's just like my question, and this was a question I had when we did the stream last week. Can their offense, their star power, and their front-loaded starting lineup, can they do enough to carry their team all the way? And I'm not sure. No one is. But right now, I think the Suns are in a solid place. They're just going to need to be more efficient and get the job done faster than they originally would have expected if they had more depth on their squad.
Well, the truth is, it's not going to get easier for the Suns, right? They're going to go to LA now. Then if they do win the series, then they're going to play better opponents. So if they can't get this job done right, they lost one game, right? I think it's a little too early to be concerned. But of course, yeah, their lack of depth is a little concerning. It's kind of funny. Feels like the Nets, maybe one thing they lack is superstars, right? That star postseason power. And then the Suns are lacking depth. And both teams had what they're missing just a few weeks ago. But yeah, I mean, it was the right trade to make. I think if you're the Suns, I think obviously you have an opportunity to acquire Kevin Durant. You kind of have to do that. So I think right, because if they lose if they kept that depth that they had, lose in the playoffs, you're gonna say, well, what about that opportunity at Kevin Durant? We could have had that. So I think they did the right thing. And yeah, like I said, it's only 1-1. It's not like they're down 2-0 or 3-1 yet. That's when you get concerned. But true. I mean, I still think they're gonna go all the way at least in the Western Conference.
Really?
I mean, I was thinking. I mean, this we talked about this last week, and and I know, but I think there's the amount of star power they have. I think they will still take care of business. Plus, Kawhi being out. So
the Mickey Mouse bubble, like when the Lakers won the championship, by 2 stars.
What are you gonna do? I still think they're gonna go to the finals. And yeah, like as I mentioned, Kawhi is gonna be out too. So
I agree with you that the Suns win the series. I just don't know long term.
But I'll ask you this: who do you think would beat them? Who's beating the Suns?
So I think let me go.
I think the Nuggets would beat them. Not because I think the Nuggets could be.
That's a shocker.
It shouldn't be.
You picked them to go to the finals.
I did. So. I think the Nuggets would beat them. I think the only 2 teams that would beat the Suns would be Denver. I think Memphis could.
Well,
we're gonna get into them in a second, but I think Memphis, would be. I don't know. I mean, the Suns are a great team. It's gonna depend on who has more depth, and if anyone I'll throw out Sacramento because I kind of like their depth for some reason. I think whoever has the deeper squad will beat the Suns. I think Denver should. I mean, seeding. I mean, there you go. I mean, I don't know. Like something is bound to happen to ruin the Suns season. I just that's just a personal feeling.
happen.
It could happen. I mean, didn't they blow a 2-0 lead against the Bucks? Or like they blew a lead against the Bucks? It was 2-0. Something like that. I think could be bound to happen. I mean, ringless Chris Paul. I mean, I love Chris Paul. He deserves a ring, and this is the squad to do it. If you had more depth with them, like imagine realistically. Imagine Mikal Bridges for some reason would be still there with Durant. I think if Mikal Bridges is still there, I'd be way more confident about that. I said the Suns would have beat the Nuggets. I think the Suns would have won. Exactly.
But I honestly, two things. First of all, I mean, you had to give up McCall to get.
I know that.
And the other thing is, can't you argue that depth gets you to the playoffs? You know, you need that star power to get through. Playoffs.
But at the same time, you cannot play some players 48 minutes if you want in a 7-game series.
I mean, but that's usually how it goes often. When you get to game sevens, that's when your stars play 45 minutes.
That's a fair point. But in the earlier games, I'll say like game, I don't know, 3, would you have Kevin Durant with a game in 2 days play? Say that game goes the full 48. Would you play Kevin Durant 45 minutes when you play in 2 days?
Well,
it's a tight game, then
fair enough.
Also, I would like to have Kevin Durant on my team. So rather than, of course, they had to give up a lot of depth to get
if you're
him,
the Suns, would you realistically be playing Kevin Durant? Because you have to think of the situation. Okay. Like if it's a close game, I would rest Kevin Durant the last 2-3 minutes of the third and play in the rest of the game. Or rest him at the end of the first, rest him for like a minute or two at the end of the first half. Like 40 minutes, okay. But like more than that, I don't know. Especially with a guy like Kevin Durant, who I feel like can get injured very easily. I don't know. That's the one thing I'm skeptical about was Kevin Durant a little bit. I mean, he got injured in a warm-up, and that was kind of sad. But I feel like that can be. But to that point, it could happen to anyone. It's just unfortunate that happened to Kevin Durant at the time it was, because if that didn't happen to Kevin Durant, who knows? They could be the 1 seed. I don't know. They could be 1, 2, or 3 seed and probably be playing the Grizzlies in the second round, not possibly be having to play the Nuggets. But right now, I think on the topic of Memphis, let's talk about Memphis. They're playing the Lakers, are at 1-1 as well. I said the Lakers are going to win this series solely the fact that it's playoff LeBron and Anthony Davis. And I used the logic that star power will get you through 1 series and then get you ran off the court in the second round, which is why I had the Kings going as far as I had them going. I mean, I believe the Lakers took game 1, and then they lost game 2. But they've been, I think, if I remember correctly, they've both been close. No? Is that right? Yeah, they've both been close games. I'm shocked that personally, I mean, they lost by 10 yesterday. I'll ask you guys this. Are you shocked that it's as close as it is? Both games. I think we'll start with Colin on this. Are you shocked that the games are as close as they are?
Well, look, obviously you said playoff LeBron. This Lakers team is much better than the one we saw before. Now, there is a stat that ever since they made these moves at the trade deadline, I believe they have maybe even the best record in the NBA or one of the best records in the NBA. Now, granted, the problem with doing the moves that they did, they got D'Angelo Russell, Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley. These are both they're all one-dimensional players. D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley are great offensive players. Vanderbilt's a great defensive guy. But if those guys are not exactly, playing their, like we saw D'Angelo Russell have a bad shooting game in game 2, then those guys are not very useful on the floor, which is a big reason why they lost that game too. But of course, we haven't mentioned it yet. Ja Morant's injury, hurt in his hand. That he did not play game 2. He was in a lot of pain. We don't know the status for game 3, what that's going to look like.
They won that game without Morant.
They won it without Morant, but they ended up losing it down the stretch without him in game 1. Now, Rui Hachimura has been a guy who has really stepped up for the Lakers here, scoring over 20 points off the bench both games. We saw Austin Reeves have a big game 1, kind of was the closer in that game, actually. But Anthony Davis didn't have a good game, too. And listen, Jaren Jackson Jr. just got named Defensive Player of the Year, and he did a pretty good job on Anthony Davis in game 2. And that's one thing about the Grizzlies, right? They're kind of like, they remind me of Milwaukee, too. That's the next series we're going to talk about, by the way. But they remind me of Milwaukee in the way where they have a lot of guys you can rely on. Now, Dylan Brooks, he's not a guy who is very liked by a lot of NBA fans, but, he's exactly what a lot of these great teams have, kind of like that guy who will talk trash to the opponent. He's talking a lot to LeBron James. I think they got a lot of good pieces, and I think that even without John Morant, they can still possibly win this series. I originally picked the Grizzlies in 5 games. I think they're a better basketball team. If they had John Morant, I think that this series could be in their favor even more. I don't know what his status is. Going back to Los Angeles, though, I feel that now I can see both teams winning the game in Los Angeles. I think that this series is going to go much deeper now, considering the circumstances that we've seen. Ultimately, it's going to come down to whether these guys want to step up for the Lakers. Because look, 38-year-old LeBron James cannot do it all. I get that he was scored, 27, 28 points past 2 games, but you cannot rely on him. He's not that. I mean, he's still great. He's still an all-time great player, one of the best players in the league. But he's not that guy that we saw back in 2013 with Miami or 2018 with Cleveland to single-handedly will his team to a championship. So it's going to take a lot more than that. It's going to take D'Angelo Russell finally showing, kind of going back to that all-star form in Brooklyn, showing why he was the number 2 overall pick. It's going to go back to Anthony Davis being, a Hall of Fame level center, one of the best players in the league. It's going to take a lot of these guys stepping up. But this is definitely another series. These 2 games in Los Angeles are going to be watching very closely.
Yeah, and I believe I picked the Grizzlies in 7. I felt that this was going to be a very tight series. Of course, playoff LeBron is person you can't bet on. You can't bet against them usually. Now John Morant being out, that's obviously huge for the Grizzlies, but they still won game 2 without him. So I really don't even know. It does go to LA, where the Lakers will be slightly, favored to win, but the fact that the Grizzlies could still win without John Morant, that is, I think this is still going to go to 7. I honestly, I don't even know who I think is going to win the series. I guess I'll stick with the Grizzlies like I picked before, but like I had last week. But I'm going to say this still goes to 7.
And, like I said, I think the next series we have to talk about Milwaukee and Miami because, look, I think that I thought this was going to be a 4-game sweep. I thought this wasn't even going to be competitive. But in the first quarter of game 1, Giannis Antetokounmpo went down with a back injury, and he hasn't played since. Another situation where we're not quite sure the availability. We don't know what it's going to look like for game 3. But this is where Milwaukee comes in. This is why I had them go into the finals because, look, I think this team has the best depth in basketball. I think they have a huge rotation of guys who they can rely on. When Giannis is healthy, you don't really see this a lot in the postseason, but they're kind of pretty much running the 10-man rotation here. Let me pull up the lineup that they ran in game 1 against Miami real quick. So looking at the starting lineup, they had obviously Chris Middleton, Giannis, Brook Lopez, Grayson Allen, Drew Holiday. Off the bench, they rely on Joe Ingles, Bobby Portis, Wesley Matthews, Dre Crowder, also Javon Carter. You don't see a lot of teams run 10-man rotations in the playoffs. And this is why I do like Milwaukee because I think ultimately, even when you're losing Giannis, I mean, they won game 2 without him, kind of a lot like Memphis did. They have a lot of guys who they can go to rely on. We saw Brook Lopez have a huge game. Brook Lopez is a great role player. Remember back when he was a star in Brooklyn. Obviously, Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday, they had huge moments on that championship run they had just a couple of years ago. But Miami also, keep it on. I think just in general, that Sunday of playoff games, saw a ton of injuries because Tyler Hero also broke his hand. And he's going to be out most likely for the remainder of the postseason. I think he'd only be able to come back if the Miami Heat make the finals, which is probably not going to happen. But, losing Tyler Hero, that's going to be big for the Heat. But ultimately, if you just look at the Bucks without Giannis and the Heat without Tyler Hero, I think the Bucks get the edge there, but still, it's going to be fascinating to see because if you do remember that Eastern Conference Finals, Giannis did get hurt before the finals against the Suns, and they ended up beating Atlanta without him. That's how they clinched the Eastern Conference championship. So interested to see how this Bucks team plays without Giannis, but I don't think it'll hurt them too much. Obviously, Miami was able to steal the first one, but going back to Miami, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, of course, and yeah, as you mentioned, it goes back to Miami. But I still think, as you mentioned, the Bucks, their depth. I mean, to beat the Heat the way that they did yesterday without Giannis is special. Granted, the Heat are maybe not the best team in this postseason, but they're still a solid team, and the Bucks simply took care of business. That's going to be huge for them. The question becomes, how far can they make it? How far can this team go? Right. If we'll see. What's the status on Giannis's injury?
I don't know. We can look into that.
But, whatever it is, if it's 1 game, 2 games, if it's a couple of weeks, which I doubt that personally, I feel like that would be talked about a lot more. But, whatever it is, if they can take care of business without Giannis, that's huge. But the question would become, however long Giannis is out, can the Bucks sustain, do well without him? So, yeah.
I mean, I agree with you guys that both injuries have been. I think Hero's injury is a big problem for Miami because it's Jimmy Butler and who's like their second scorer.
It's been
Adebayo.
I mean, they have okay. Let's go. I think it was Tyler Hero. Sorry for not having like the numbers in front of me, but at the same time, I think Milwaukee. We knew they're a very good basketball team. That's why they're in first. Miami's had a down. I think they had a little bit of a down year, but I think right now with where Miami's at with losing Hero, I think it could be over for them. Granted, Miami will win another. I think Miami wins another game. They will find a way to win another game. They will scrap their way, I think, to another game to win another matchup. And I think Milwaukee wins this in 6. I think Milwaukee's losing Giannis. If Giannis comes back, like say for game 3, I think it's in 5. But if he comes back a little bit later, I think it could be in 6. There's one more series because of like where the other series are at. I mean, we've talked. We know about Nets and Sixers. We knew the 76ers were going to win that series. One that I feel like could be interesting to possibly discuss briefly before we move on to a little bit of baseball is Nuggets and Timberwolves. And the reason for that, last night, I was able to watch the game last night because I was up very late last night working on something that I get to talk about in a couple of days. I'll do that announcement in a little while. And the Nuggets, they didn't look like as dominant like they were in game 1. Is this a problem? I think it could be a problem because I think going back to Minneapolis, I think the Timberwolves can be more confident that they can take at least one, maybe even both games in the Twin Cities. I think it's possible now. I think with Minnesota, granted, Minnesota in game 1, they were not spectacular. I think they scored a playoff low 80 points. That is terrible. However, they've bounced back a little bit and barely lost to the 1 seed. And we'll go to the box score a little bit. Cat has been not good. 10 points and 12 rebounds. Your leading Anthony Edwards went crazy last night. I'll give him that. He went 41, 4 assists, and 2 boards. Rudy Gobert almost like fought someone. We actually saw a little bit of an interesting moment, I think, with him and Kyle Anderson like stepping in to save the day a little bit without preventing Rudy Gobert from getting a tech. I think that was a very interesting moment. What a crazy couple of days it's been for like week or so. It's been for the Timberwolves. I mean, you had the suspension with Gobert for basically, I call it fighting Anderson. Then you go out, you make the play, you win, you make the playoffs. Okay. You lose game 1. You didn't deserve it. You fight well in game 2. And Kyle Anderson saves the day a little bit for making that game worse than what it was. From making it losing the momentum. I think Minnesota should have momentum. I think they can maybe do something, though. Cat has to figure out. If you're getting outscored by Taurean Prince, that's a problem. I think if you're getting outscored, you have the same points as aforementioned Kyle Anderson. That is a problem. I think Denver is in a prime position to win this series. Jokic hasn't had to do much. Jamal Murray is that guy. He had 40 points last night, which was crazy. MPJ, I think is he on a long contract? MPJ? I'm trying to remember if I think MPJ is disappointing me a little bit. But Aaron Gordon with a double-double, I think it's pretty self-explanatory that Denver should win this series. But will Minnesota make a move? Maybe make it more interesting? And how game 2 went, I think it's very possible. Chris, your thoughts?
The big thing, right, is getting Cat better. I don't know what you got to do, but he needs to
figure it out.
Yeah, you're in the playoffs, you got to figure it out. We didn't think they were going to be here, and here they are. They are down 2-0, so it's not like there is much upside or things. But you made game 2, as you mentioned, pretty tight, and now you head back to Minnesota, right? It's look, going back home in the NBA and in all sports, but mostly I think NBA baseball, it's huge. Going back home is humongous for these teams, and I don't think I'm gonna stick with my prediction that the Nuggets sweep, but because I think I had them playing. I didn't have them playing Timberwolves.
None of us did, by the way.
Yeah, I had them playing the Thunder, so yeah, I still think they're gonna sweep, but it's. If you're a Minnesota fan, you're definitely happier than you thought you were going to be. So,
Yeah, Jamal Murray, I believe he had 40 points in that game last night in game 2. He's a guy who had an ACL injury, but I do remember very well that 2019 first round series against San Antonio. He had a very big performance. He also had a big performance in the bubble as well. He's a guy who I think also is another big playoff performer. And I think that he's more valuable than Jokic, honestly, in the playoffs for this Nuggets team, because I think that he's going to be relied on more to have those big scoring outputs, because Nikola Jokic isn't entirely a scorer. He's kind of more of a guy who sets his teammates up, kind of makes plays happen on offense. But I think Jamal Murray is a big piece here. I think that Minnesota definitely has a star power to get some games out of the series, obviously, with Towns, Anthony Edwards, who I feel is kind of flown under the radar a lot here. Also, with Rudy Gobert, maybe if he isn't punching his teammates. But maybe the Minnesota Timberwolves could have a shot, or at least win a couple games at home. But Nuggets should still win the series. It's just going forward where the Nuggets concern me. Now, you guys want to talk about baseball, but I think also we have to get into some NFL eventually later on. But I guess we'll start off with the baseball segment.
We'll do a brief baseball before we go into a bit of football. I want to talk about like some surprising teams, and I think we should each go into like a surprising team or two that's been shocking us a little bit. My teams, I'm gonna do one from the AL, one on the NL. My surprising team, and they're going to be a team that's been surprisingly bad. I'm going to go with Seattle. I think they've been disappointing me greatly. 8-11 with Texas leading that division. And the Angels having hope. That division's a little bit crazy to me. I mean, what they're doing, I think Seattle has the star power. I mean, you have a rotation featuring Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert. I feel like with other pieces as well, I'm probably forgetting a couple as well. You've had solid pieces on offense. They're just off to a slow start. I feel like they're going to bounce back. You're going to see Texas. I don't know how sustainable Texas is going to be. I mean, they're off to a 12-win start, but I mean, Houston, I feel like you have to feel like Houston bounce back. You have to feel like LA is going to fall off because that's the way they are. I mean, their bullpen, their rotation is not better than, I say, 3 teams in that division. I think everyone's better than Oakland. Sorry, Athletics. But I feel like Seattle's been my team that's been disappointing. And then the team this is my surprise team, the Pirates. Wow. Good for you, Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I don't think I feel like Pittsburgh was projected to be where the Cardinals are. They're also disappointing me, but I feel like one of you guys might go into the Cardinals. But I'll highlight the Pirates. I'll highlight the Diamondbacks. I mean, Corbin Carroll, like we highlighted him earlier. He's been having off to a solid start. They did DFA Mad Bum today.
I mean, he wasn't very good.
I mean, he wasn't very good, but I'm like, why? Why now? Like, it doesn't make really much sense. But I mean, Pirates are playing well. I mean, if you want me to dive into the Mets, we might as well dive into the Mets because I'm here. And I'm really the only Mets fan in the room. 12-7, not a bad start. I have no idea what's going on in Philadelphia. Nolan and Wheeler have been disappointing so far. The Marlins are 10-9. That division's already really random, and it's random enough that the Marlins are doing better are still doing better than Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia is going to get their act together. Question is when. And I think we'll find that out soon. Colin, who are your surprises and disappointments so far through the first 20 games so far?
Well, look, it's a little obvious, right? But look at the Tampa Bay Rays, what they were able to do going off to that 13-0 start. But 16-3 record for the Rays. Obviously, I thought they were still going to be a team who could maybe hover around 500, but I didn't expect this dominant of a start. The argument is they really weren't playing a lot of top MLB competition, but they still took care of business, and you have to respect that. Now, it's kind of the same story for them as usual. They have a lot of great underrated arms in that, both their rotation and that bullpen. The hitting is what kind of concerns you about this team going forward, really being a big contender to the American League. But, hey, you got to be impressed with that start, right? I mean, anytime you start off a season 16-3, I think you're doing a lot of things right. Looking around the rest of the MLB, the Houston Astros being at 9-10. I mean, that's kind of something where I was talking about. I didn't think they were going to win the AL West this year, but I think that, with their injuries, maybe coming off that championship, I think that kind of struggling a little bit. It's not too far out of the realm of possibility, but Texas is leading this division right now, 12-6. I think that they're kind of a fun team to watch. They have a lot of underrated pieces as well. Obviously, they made big moves for getting Jacob deGrom, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien. Maybe that can start to pay off for them, but I mean, the AL West, I feel, is really up for grabs now. Obviously, the Athletics are not going to be competitive in this division. But between Seattle, now the Angels, Houston, and Texas, excited to see what happens going forward in that division.
Well, I'm gonna go to the NL Central where I have two teams. So first of all, I had my the team that I've been talking about for a while now that I believe is my surprising team of the year. World Series, obviously that was me. That was a joke, obviously. But hey, but they're starting off 11-6, the Chicago Cubs. Don't look now, but they have
They
not
will be
lost a
playing in
series.
October.
They will be, hopefully. I'm rooting. They're the
Maybe
most
even
like. I
November.
think they're one of the most likable teams in baseball. They're so likable. I mean, Cody Bellinger's great. All the other guys.
Sorry to interrupt you, Chris. I think a great moment.
I think a great moment was when Cody Bellinger robbed that home run at Dodger Stadium and then got booed for it. I thought it was hilarious because like he got like a little bit of a cheers from Dodgers fans just for, I mean, and then he got booed. I mean, if the dude, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he deserved to get booed.
No, that was.
But I thought, like, when you saw it, like, you see it live, you look back on replays, and it was just funny. But, like, yeah, the Cubs are a good choice.
But don't look now. But they haven't lost. They've only lost one series this year, and now it came that was the first series of the year against the Brewers.
Someone else did that, by the way. Lowell Mets did that. Remember that?
And you know what?
You'd be in the same spot.
Milwaukee Brewers. That's my other team. They have been phenomenal. They took 3 or 4 against the Padres this weekend. They just swept the Mariners in Seattle.
That was a shocker.
They're going to play the Red Sox at home. You'd expect them to, and then the Tigers, and then the Angels. Honestly, I don't think 9-0 is very unrealistic.
I think the biggest shocker was how the first couple of games against the Mets, like how much they outclassed the Mets.
I mean, this team has just been it's a good team. I mean it's they're kind of like the Tampa Bay Rays almost in that. I mean, they literally have a Tampa Bay Ray, Michael Brasso. He's been okay, but guys like Rowdy Tellez,
if Willie Adames,
another
Tampa
one.
Bay Ray.
Jesse Winker, Yelich is kind of playing a role as kind of like a I guess team player is kind of a weird way to say it, but not trying to be the MVP anymore, just trying to give you the leadoff hitter at times and just get on base. They're pitching and shockingly, Corbin Burns has not been that great to start off the year. I haven't in fantasy, I should know. He's been getting better, but he's not. You'd think he has like a 0 ERA if the Brewers are going to be doing this well. And 14-5, which I think that's tied for the second best record in baseball. Honestly, this is another team. I don't think I talked about them enough, like in previous shows. This team is phenomenal. They're kind of like how I feel about the Cubs, but they actually could go on one of those sneaky runs in the postseason. And I'm not saying a World Series, but I mean, this is a team that just made the ALCS in 2018, right? This is a team that knows how to play in October. It's a good team, the Milwaukee Brewers. They could win this division. Again, it's the beginning of the season. That's the big thing here. So the Astros, right? Even though they've only won 2 series this year, they're going to be better, and they have the experience. They could still win this division. These teams, like the Phillies, it's disappointing. I wasn't really high on them, but they could still go. They could still make the playoffs. But when these teams that are doing well, like the Milwaukee Brewers, you're starting to see these surprising teams. The Atlanta Braves, not that they were a surprise team, but they're tremendous as well. These teams, I think some of these teams could hold it up, and I think the Brewers are one of them.
So, I think we should briefly, before we get into some brief NFL stuff, what are your thoughts on the situation regarding Max Scherzer getting ejected yesterday?
Well, that was kind of crazy. I honestly, I didn't know that rosin was. I believe the situations that
it was too much rosin on his hand and stuck to his hand. I'm going to talk about this last because I do have a comparison to talk about.
I mean, I was kind of shocked. I know there was Domingo Germán the other day.
That's what I was going to talk about.
I would expect that because I'm a Yankee fan, and that's exactly what happened the other day.
Because the comparison there is Germán got. I think Germán's was more obvious. But I think Germán. It can't be where in certain situations you don't throw out the guy when he has the stuff on, and you throw someone out for it being less obvious. Now, granted, Phil Cuzzy last year had a game in Arizona. It was the Phillies and the Diamondbacks. And he threw out Caleb Smith for allegedly having stuff on his hands. And whatever it was, it didn't look like much. And he suspended 50 games, which I don't think is justifiable whatsoever. He didn't look like he had anything. I remember watching it in my we were in New Jersey for this. And I watched the game. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then we saw the throwouts. And I'm like, what? And it was a similar thing here. But if you do not throw out Herman, I think we all agree with this. You cannot throw out Scherzer for the same thing. If it's less obvious when he's not doing as good as Domingo Herman was. Also, I can't justify. I don't know.
Well, we'll see how Domingo
Baldelli
Herman
getting
does
thrown
tomorrow.
out though, but the Twins manager getting thrown out. I think that was kind of stupid as well. But
Well, he was getting angry, and what do you expect? I would be angry as well.
I mean, to be honest, was Showalter thrown out yesterday?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
I mean, if he wasn't, then I don't know what to say to that.
What I will say though, I guess, yeah, I don't know that whole situation. I wasn't too familiar with that rosin was an illegal substance. They had to be using a lot. I don't know. Maybe this could change something. But I also wanted to mention the Yankees rotation, Garrett Cole and Nestor Cortez. What's going on with them right now? They've been phenomenal for this team right now.
It's slowly odd with Cole. I'm
not saying that they use foreign substances. I'm just saying on the track of
I'm just
Herman.
suspicious of Cole. Nestor Cortez, I did not. Who picked Nestor Cortez? You picked Nestor Cortez.
Yeah,
this guy picked Nestor Cortez. Fair play to win Cy Young. But my thing is, Cole had that issue like, was it 2 years ago? Last year?
That was 2 years ago. But the reason I'm not bringing
I don't know.
I'm not saying that they use substances. I'm just saying that in general, with Herman doing as well as he did the other day, I think it's also important to mention with the Yankees how important Garrett Cole and Nestor have been for this team with the injuries in this rotation. And Garrett Cole is starting to get more credit. I think he deserves it. He's a guy who pitches 200 innings every year consistently in the running for a Cy Young award. He needs to get his credit. And of course, there's still a lot of time left, but him and Nestor Cortez, bringing up Herman reminded me, I wanted to mention this. I think they're ace 1, ace 2. There's like a little competition that goes on between them two. I don't think there's a competition. I think they let them.
Rodon's not even there.
Exactly. Rodon is like a theory. Rodon is an idea. Rodon doesn't exist. He's what I want to like him, but I've never seen him before.
I mean, it drives me crazy. I mean, Colin, what are your thoughts on this
before? Well, just one thing I'll say about Max Scherzer is just that I think that the reason why he got thrown out is because that specific umpire has a history. He was the one who threw out the previous guys who were ejected for that reason.
Caleb Smith.
Obviously, of course, he's going to try to appeal it, so we'll see what happens. If he was genuinely just doing what all other pitchers do, it would kind of suck to see him get suspended. But wait to see how that plays out. But I think the main reason why is just because of the umpire.
I mean, you had some brief NFL things you want to talk about. I mean, we have our draft next week, the NFL draft stream. Well, we actually have a couple announcements about that. We'll go into that very shortly. I think we should talk about where the 49ers like shopping Trey Lance or let's talk about that real quick. So that'll be our NFL news to talk about for the day. Is it right? And I'll ask two questions for this. Is it right and justifiable that the 49ers are shopping Trey Lance?
I think it's justifiable. I mean, Brock Purdy and.
Is it needed though? I
wouldn't do it personally. I think Trey Lance deserves it. He was your first round pick just a few years ago, supposed to be the quarterback of the future. I can understand. I think it's justifiable in the sense that you would want to give Brock Purdy the starting job. But I just don't understand. I think, unless there's something else I'm forgetting. Sorry.
I mean, it's a really fascinating situation what the 49ers have here because obviously Jimmy Garoppolo is not there anymore. And the plan was that Trey Lance was going to be that guy. That's why they traded up, drafted him third overall. But then Brock Purdy came to the picture. And, Brock Purdy, obviously, in that system was very good. Now, I still personally feel that mostly any quarterback, or at least somewhat of a talented quarterback, can be pretty good in that system because I think with Kyle Shanahan, those weapons, that's one of the best situations for any quarterback to be placed in. But if you just look at the numbers, Brock Purdy played better than Trey Lance did with that offense. Now, I think in a perfect world, you would kind of want them to compete against each other and then see for yourself, comparing the two of them, who you'd rather have. But Trey Lance, if you remember, has that UCL problem. And Brock Purdy, has that UCL problem. That would probably keep him out till maybe September or October. So he might not be able to play in training camp. But of course, if you feel confident that you can get the same amount of production out of Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, I think it's worthwhile to shop Trey Lance because I feel he can get a big offer for him. I mean, he still is a guy who we really have not seen a lot of, let's be honest here. And I mean, if you're able to get like a first, second round pick for him, I think if you're the 49ers, you might consider it because listen, you're still a very talented team and you wouldn't mind adding more pieces. It just depends on how you evaluate Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. And I can't really answer that question for you right now because Trey Lance is still pretty much an unknown. We saw Brock Purdy in the playoffs, and look, for a rookie quarterback in the playoffs, Brock Purdy did a pretty good job, but we didn't really get to see him that much against Philadelphia. It was only really one drive before he got injured, but he won that playoff game against Seattle. He won a playoff game against Dallas. Granted, they were both at home, but listen, you got to be impressed. For a rookie quarterback to do that, I mean, that's basically as far in the playoffs as a rookie quarterback has ever gotten. So all I'm going to say right now is that I think if I'm San Francisco, I want to try to make those two guys compete against each other and then evaluate my option from there. But I get the logic behind trying to shop Trey Lance, see what you can get out of him, see what the market says right now, especially with a lot of teams being, quarterback needy.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. I think Lance getting shopped. I think a team when we talk about mock drafts later on, I think a team that could be interested in a Trey Lance, Tampa Bay. I mean, maybe if they want to trade 25 for him, I could see that happening.
Yeah, because are you sold on Baker Mayfield being your
Are they sold? Maybe they go really. Speaking on Tampa Bay real quick, maybe they go really risky and take Hendon Hooker just because why not? But at the same time, Trey Lance, I think he may have even played in like similar amount of games as Trey Lance, and Trey Lance has played in similar amount of games as Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy has been arguably the better quarterback. I mean, you traded up multiple first-round picks to send to Miami, which have turned into other good pieces, and it drives me crazy, Tyreek Hill. But at the same time, like, look, if the numbers are if you believe that numbers are justifiable, Brock Purdy is your guy. The issue is no one knows when he's coming back, when he's going to be fully healthy again. So I feel like with Lance, this is why I don't think they should move Lance. I'll speak from both sides. They should not move Lance so they don't rush Purdy back. Because I feel like if you trade Lance, you'll have to start. I think possibly you might have to start Sam Darnold the game if you trade Trey Lance. I don't think they want to do that. So I think if you want to stay competitive, you keep Lance, move him at the deadline next year. I think that's a very good possibility. Yeah, but at the same time, if you can capitalize on value for Lance now, do it. If you don't want to take risks, go ahead. Get like a first or a second round pick. I don't think they'd be mad. I mean, they traded a lot to move up to get him, but at the same time, I think if they can get fair enough value back for Lance and if you're the Niners, you can get a piece to add, whatever position you think they may need. Maybe they go line, maybe they go somewhere else. I mean, I feel like if you're the Niners getting a first round pick at like 25, there's some decent pieces that could fall to 25. I mean, what would be a need for them? Give me like an example of a need for them. They don't really have I don't think they have a first round pick.
Maybe the secondary?
I mean, if you want to go secondary, I mean, maybe go Cam Smith, the defensive back out of South Carolina. He's a physical corner. He's versatile. He can play multiple spots. I think that'd be a great fit for them. Even though we'll talk about mock drafts in about one more second. But I feel like if they want to make that move, maybe trade into the first round, I think that could be a fit for them. But a couple quick announcements before we close our show. Next week is our NFL draft special. And we have more names to announce for you. Here's our schedule for how it's going to work. We are bringing in 3 total guests. It was supposed to be 4. We only got 3. We're sorry for that. It's tough getting multiple guests. And first of all, I want to say thank you to WIUR and the guests that will be joining us for wanting to join this fantastic event that we're going to be holding down for you guys. So from 7 to 9, we got the College Football Fanatic. You can watch his show. I believe they're on Mondays. He has a great show. He's meet with us for the first 2 hours, probably watching about the first 7 picks with us or so, first 7 or 8 picks. He's bring great insight to us, and we're really excited to have him. 9 to 10 is going to be Christian. You remember him from the World Cup stream. He's coming back. You'll probably see a couple picks with us from 9 to 10. And then 10 to 11. These guys have wanted him really badly, and we got him. Cam Woolley, the Woolly Mammoth, joins us from 10 to 11. We're really excited to have him, especially with being a Giants guy, by the way. I feel like he will bring phenomenal insight as well to what the Giants, what other teams may be able to do. And from 11 o'clock on, we are planning on having just the 3 of us to finish out the rest of the draft. We're really excited to have this show for you guys. Unfortunately, we will not have our show from 5 to 6. We're just going to be kicking it off with the draft. Another announcement. One other announcement. I will be hosting a show on Saturday with my NFL mock draft. This is, by the way, this mock draft is taking forever, but the mock draft stream will be at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time On Saturday, you'll join me. Listen to me go over some other news possibly as well from other sports, including possibly some soccer news if you want to listen to that, because we really only have talked about soccer once on this show. So might as well dive into some other topics, but I'll be solo in this stream, probably in the track Chris is in at 12:30 on Saturday. So make sure to join us for possibly my solo show on Saturday and the draft on Thursday. But for all of us here at Into the Stands, this is the end of episode 22. Thank you for listening to us this week. As always, like I said, draft next Thursday. We want to see a lot of people in that chat and watching us live. It will be very exciting for us. But for all of the guys here, we'll see you guys next time. All right.